Hey there, guys. Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I just got back home from work just a little bit ago, and this is a video I've been wanting to talk about for the last couple days, at least since I had heard it, really. But before I get into that, if you are new to the channel and you love hockey, you love any kind of hockey content, jersey unboxings, just talking hockey jerseys, going through jersey collections, any stuff like that. If you love hockey in general, then I think this would be this might be a good channel for you. And if you love that kind of stuff, it would be absolutely awesome and would be greatly appreciated by me if you would hit that subscribe button. Also, if you like the videos, hit that like button, and don't be afraid to, if you want to get notified of any new videos that get uploaded, you can hit that little bell there to be notified of any time a new video gets uploaded. Before I get into the topic that I wanted to talk about, I have a Discord server that is specifically for hockey talk, talking, hockey games, anything hockey related. That's it. Hockey. That's it. But there are a bunch of people that apparently think that it's complete romper room. And I'm not having that. I'm not having that on that server. If you're there to talk hockey and be with fellow hockey lovers, you're welcome. You're get on there and let's talk hockey. But if you're there to be a complete jerk off, disrespectful, just a general a-hole, that's not gonna fly. You will get banned, you will get booted, and I am setting up some moderators to when I'm off doing stuff, that they'll be in charge of seeing what's going on, and they will have the ability to ban people, to boot them off if you're being just general pricks. So don't do that. Pretty simple. So if you love hockey and you want to get on the Discord, by all means join it. But if you're there to be a complete a-hole, that's not flying. So you will be booted, you will be banned. Don't do it. So just remember that if you're there to be a prick, that's not gonna fly, and you will not be on that server. So, with that said, the rumor, there was a rumor that apparently it was put up by John Butchergross at first, and I don't know exactly how serious it is, but it definitely got people talking. And this is a video I've been wanting to do for the last couple days, because I have some thoughts. And it's the whole idea of the NHL maybe putting a team in Atlanta for a third time. Now, I understand that Atlanta's a huge market. Atlanta is a huge market for sports. It is one of the top 10 biggest sports markets in the country. But they have had 2 hockey teams that have been there and have left. So I understand with Atlanta being a big sports market, and the NHL, they're all about money. More money. We need to bring in more money. That the thought of a team back in Atlanta, I mean, yeah, it's appealing. I mean, I can understand why it might be appealing to the NHL. And there's been talk that it would be contingent to an expansion team also in Houston. Now, Houston, I mean, they've never had a hockey team in Houston, or at least not an NHL team in Houston. And Houston could be interesting. I mean, I don't know how real big of a hockey market they would be, but it might work in Houston, and it's possible that a team could work in Atlanta, because the last time when the Atlanta Thrashers came in, the expansion draft, the rules and everything that they had for the expansion draft, they were awful from the start, and they were awful the entire time they were there. And they had 1 year where they were halfway decent. 1 year, I think they won their division, they made the playoffs, and they got swept in the first round. And then they went to being absolutely horrible again. And they just, it wasn't necessarily, they didn't leave necessarily because the fans didn't support the team. They lost their building. The Thrashers lost their building, so they had nowhere to play. And, True North Sports, came in and said, hey, we'll take them. We got a building up here in Winnipeg. And off to Winnipeg they went. So, my issue, though, with the potential of giving Atlanta a third bite at the apple here is this team, this city. Why? Why does Atlanta deserve a third bite at the apple for an NHL team, but Quebec doesn't deserve to have a team back? I understand Quebec is a smaller market. It's a real small market. And the Canadian dollar is, well, the Canadian dollar is absolutely, in comparison to the American dollar, the Canadian dollar is basically in the crapper. I mean, that's there's not much of a easier way to say that. But and the fact that Quebec was interested. They wanted to get in on the expansion, in the expansion process with Vegas, but they pulled out. Why did they pull out? Because the Canadian dollar is garbage. And that literally might have been the last chance that Quebec had of ever getting a team again. And this is where I go back to, sometimes I understand the whole political aspect of, owners, public money, being involved in stadium building and arena building. I get it's always a touchy subject. And in 1995, it was a bad deal going on. I mean, Marcelo Boo was he didn't have the money to really keep it going. The Canadian dollar was down. What a surprise. Back then, I can't remember. Has the Canadian dollar ever been worth anything? Because in the 90s, it was awful then too. So that's what makes me wonder, has the Canadian dollar ever been worth anything? Because that was during a time where there was talk of a lot of the Canadian teams leaving. There was talk about Calgary leaving, talk about Edmonton leaving. It was very possible that in the 90s, there might not have been any Canadian teams. That was a possibility. Because the Canadian dollar was so bad back then. And it really hasn't improved much either, unfortunately. But, you know, the players were starting to make a lot more money. There was no salary cap at the time. Their building, they needed a new building in the worst way. Because, I mean, Le Colisée was, I mean, it was old. It was, you know, especially when you had the arenas that were starting to be built in the mid 90s, the mid to late 90s. Le Colisée they wouldn't never have been able to keep up. And they just, you know, they needed a building. They desperately needed a new arena that had more capacity and all that. And they would have sold, I mean even when this team was bad, they still had 14,000 fans, you know, 14,000 fans a game, which nobody could really understand, because back in the early 90s, this team won 12, there was a season they won 12 games, and they still were drawing 14,000 fans a game. During a season, they won 12 games. So the idea that Quebec can't support a team, fan support, they can't support a team, is garbage, because they did. They supported this team when they were absolute garbage. But yet, you know, they left. Why did they leave? Because Marcel Aubut, the owner at the time, he went to the province and he was trying to get the province to work with him on getting a new building, on, you know, building up a new building. And the province at the time said, nope, no chance. Well, you know what happens after that? After they say, yeah, no, we're not doing that. I mean, we'd love for the team to stay, but we're not putting public money toward this team. Well, you know what happened? Bye-bye. Off to Denver they go. Where then their first year in Denver, they win the Stanley Cup. Which, you know, and now we look back at that situation, because it was just a few years later that they finally decided, okay, you know, we'll put public money toward this new arena, which is the Videotron Center, which they have over 18,000 seat capacity. They built that arena for one reason: to try and lure the NHL back to Quebec. The problem is they should have done the agreement for the Videotron Center then. If they would have done the agreement to build the Videotron Center in 1995, or even before that, even a little before that, or even the last year in Quebec, if they would have made the agreement to build the Videotron Center in the early 90s, or even the last year they were there in 1995, the agreement to build the Videotron Center, if that happens, the Nordiques never leave. The Nordiques never would have left. Denver would have probably gotten an expansion team, and this wouldn't be an issue. Now, granted, after 1995, that's when if they would have stayed in Quebec after 1995, if they would have gotten the arena thing figured out, this jersey and logo would have gone away. They had a whole rebrand all ready to go. New jerseys, new logo. Interesting looking logo. You know, basically was a husky. It was the face of a husky, and it was pretty neat. And the jersey designs actually looked really nice. I mean, I had seen pictures of what the jerseys were going to look like. They actually looked really nice. I definitely would have wanted to have gotten one. I was in high school at the time. I would have wanted one if they would have been able to stay. But this is the drawback to not being able to come to a deal on building arenas. And I always know it's a touchy subject because, you know, sometimes these owners, they've got enough money, build the arena themselves. I'm not a Dallas Cowboy fan at all. I cannot stand the Dallas Cowboys. But Jerry Jones, he built that arena in Dallas, or Irving, Texas. He built that arena with his own money. That was a $2 billion building. Not 1 cent of public money went into that building. Jerry Jones funded it all himself. Some owners can do that. You know, so I mean, I got a lot of respect for them, you know, being able to fund an arena by them, you know, themselves like that, where the owner's like, no, I don't need public money. Here's a check, $2 billion, build the thing. It's basically what he did. Well, back in the 90s, you know, and even now, a lot of owners, they can't do that. Or, I mean, I think some of them could, but it depends on where you are. But back in 1995, Quebec, the Nordique ownership, they couldn't do it. They needed help. They needed public help to keep the Nordiques in Quebec. They didn't get it. And because they didn't get it, they lost their hockey team. They have never gotten it back. And honestly, as much as I want to see the Nordiques come back, I would love to see this jersey I'd love to see this particular jersey again being worn, you know, by an NHL team in Quebec. I would love to see it again. I don't think it happens. I really don't. Because of the fact that back in 1995, Quebec, who didn't want to put the public money into the building to help the Nordiques stay there, they lost their team. They've never gotten it back, and I don't think they ever will. Even though they have a relatively new building there that seats 18,000 plus fans, they built that thing in the hopes to draw the NHL back to Quebec. It hasn't happened. And now the idea of the NHL going back to Atlanta for a third time instead of giving Quebec another bite at the apple? Do I think it's fair? No, I don't. Because we know the fans in Quebec. They said they would support the team. They will support the team. They will sell that arena out like that. But they're a small market. And that's the thing. And if the NHL is talking about the potential of expanding one more time, which, I mean, I'm not saying that that's actually going to happen, but because, I mean, if you expand one more time, you probably have to change the playoff setup. I mean, right now it's perfect. You have a 32-team league. Half the teams make the playoffs. Half the teams miss the playoffs. It's a perfect setup. 16 of 32 teams make the playoffs. If you were to expand to 34 and, include Houston in there, you put another team in Atlanta, you put Houston in there, if they have Atlanta, if they put a team in Atlanta for a third time and include Houston, that means they will have NHL teams in every big market in the country. And honestly, that to me is what the NHL is looking for. That's what they're looking at. What way can we make more money? And I think they see more of a moneymaker in Atlanta than they would in Quebec. Now, I mean, and if they had, and honestly, with the expansion rules like they are now, if they put a team back in Atlanta, they might actually be pretty good. I mean, we've seen what they did with Vegas look what's going on with Seattle. Seattle is, potentially going to make the playoffs in their second season. So, I mean, a team now, I think, in Atlanta could work. Possibly. Do we know for sure? No, we don't. But it's just, I don't like the idea. And I don't like the idea of giving a market a third team before giving a true hockey market, even though it's small, another crack at it. Just because of the fact that at the time, the province didn't want to work with Nordique's ownership to build a new arena. It's interesting that they agreed to do it a few years later when it didn't mean anything because you'd already lost the team. I want a team back in Quebec in the worst way. The rivalries would be amazing. I mean, especially with Montreal, with Boston. I mean, you put that whole division back together again. And it would work. I think a team in Quebec could work. However, with the Canadian dollar being in the toilet, like it always seems to be, how long would they last? I mean, and it's sad because Canada is a great country for hockey. Hockey is their national sport. But with the Canadian dollar being where it is, where it always seems to be, I don't think Quebec ever gets a team back. I really don't. I think Atlanta will get a team back for a third time before Quebec ever gets one. And to me, that's sad because this is a great hockey market. Those fans love their sport. They loved the Nordiques. It didn't matter how bad they were. They still came out and supported them. And the crazy thing is, even during that whole time that they were bad, that's a team, they never lost money. They never lost money. They were always, even when the Canadian dollar was down in the 90s, they still were profitable. They still made money. It's crazy to think about that they were that bad for that long and they still made money. They didn't lose money. I just, I'd love to see the Nordiques come back. I don't think it happens. I don't think at the moment that Atlanta is going to get a team. I don't think that's going to happen that's not going to happen in the next couple years. 5-10 years down the road, maybe. I mean, the NHL is big on money. Well, they got $500 million from Vegas. They got $650 million from Seattle. And that goes right into the owners' pockets. The owners split the expansion fees up 32 ways. The players, the NHLPA gets none of that. So why would the NHL, why would they turn down money? And if they were to expand again, you got $650 million out of Seattle. What are you going to charge another expansion fee? $800 million? You're going to charge $800 million expansion fee? Okay, so you give a team to Atlanta and Houston. $800 million apiece? $1.6 billion? If you're in the NHL, are you turning that down? Why would you even think of turning that down? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. But I don't think the Atlanta thing happens in the next, I don't see that happening necessarily in the next 5 years. I think it'll be further down the road. Do I think it could happen? I think it could. But I don't think it's going to happen in the near future. But I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think Quebec is getting hosed here? Do you think that Atlanta deserves a third team before Quebec gets a second crack at it? Or even Hartford? You know, I think there's some good hockey markets out there. There really are. Just because they're smaller markets doesn't mean that they're not good markets, because they are, and they would make money. But the NHL, I think they look at the bigger the market, that's what they think of. And, you know, to me, I think Quebec deserves a team more than Atlanta does. Hell, Hartford, I think, would deserve a team more than Atlanta would, because Atlanta's already had 2 bites at the apple. Why do they deserve a third? Just because they're one of the top 10 biggest markets in the country? You know, they have other sports. You know, I mean, are there hockey fans in Atlanta? Of course, but I think you got a lot of hockey fans that have wanted hockey back in their cities for a long time. Hartford being one, Quebec being the other. Quebec is the most vocal, and they're the one that honestly I think they deserve a team more than Atlanta does. That's just that's my opinion. And you know, I'd love to know what you guys think. You know, do you guys think Atlanta deserves a third bite at the apple, or do you think the NHL should give Quebec another chance? Would the NHL ever consider giving Quebec another chance? I'd love to know what you guys think about that, because I think Quebec deserves another crack at it, because I think it could work there. Even with a crappy Canadian dollar, I think it could work in Quebec. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. Again, I'll put the link to the Discord in the description. Again, when it comes to the Discord, if you're there to talk hockey and strictly hockey, by all means, you're welcome. You're welcome in there. But if you're there to be a douchebag or, you know, a prick or whatever else, and you're there to just, you know, be, you know, disrespectful, verbally abusive, whatever, gone. So think about that before you get into the Discord. So let me know again what you guys think about this topic. Do you think Quebec deserves a team more than Atlanta? Personally, I do. Again, that's just me. But you know, I'd love to know what you guys think about that, as I've rambled on for 28 and a half minutes about this on this subject. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And again, if you have not done so yet, hit that like button. Don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button. Hit that little bell if you want to be notified of any future videos. And yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? Would you guys love to see this jersey be skating around back in the NHL again? I know I would. Let me know what you guys think. Again, hit like and subscribe if you have not done so already. And I will see you guys later.